All right, we should be live, everyone. Welcome. Good morning. Happy November the 10th. I think it's the 10th. It's Thursday. Either way, we made it to November the 10th. Hope you guys are having a good week and learning and flowing and I just hope it's going well. Okay. So today we're doing a lot. We don't actually have as much content we have to cover. I have a few people finishing the 8-week course in our Money Made Financial personal finance course for teens that we do, which is also a wonderful investment if you're interested, or maybe you've done algebra for a while and you want to mix it up. You want to hit something that uh, hopefully will last your child's whole life. Our Money Made Simple program is very helpful for teens to get an idea on so many subjects, right? About saving, giving, investing, about home ownership, how percents work, and finance and credit scores and things like that. So anyway, I just want to do a quick plug there before we get to it. So I'm going to kind of keep this one pretty short and simple. I hope to make this video about 15 minutes. I really don't want to go longer than 15 today because I don't think we need to. One of my a couple of different clients I have this week, we're looking at just some skills, critical thinking skills, I guess is what I wanted to say. And shout out to one of my students, young man. I really enjoyed our last session together, and you really demonstrated the ability to know how to think. I mean, you were asking the right questions, you were having good aha moments, right? You were making connections, and it was a very good sign from my perspective. So shout out to you. I mean it. I'm proud of you. So one of the things I want to talk about is basically a common thing I've seen with standardized tests, ACT tests, SAT, college entrance things. It's very popular, especially if you're just trying to take an assessment that kind of assesses your problem solving skills and your competency. And you'll see a lot of ones that kind of look like this. This is a different representation, but it's basically under the umbrella of evaluating an expression. Okay. And a lot of times they'll say it that way. Please evaluate the expression when X equals this and when Y equals such and such, for example. So, what I wanted to share with you guys on today's live is another representation that you'll see from time to time. And I want you to understand it's exactly like the other evaluating expression problems you've seen in the past, except for they give you the information in a table as opposed to just saying X equals 0 and Y equals 3, right? So what they've given you is a bunch of different values of X. And what they're saying is, well, when X is 0, Y should equal 3. When X is 1, look, the Y right there should equal 5. I have to make sure it switches the numbers when I looking on screen. When X is 2, the Y should be 7, and so on and so forth. So if you see a problem like this, or I should really say when you see a problem like this, you want to understand it's basically make sure you can plug in the X into a function or an equation. You'll hear it called both things, and see if it gives you the Y that corresponds with it. For example, if you got X at 0, that means Y needs to be equal to 3 when X is at 0, if this is a true uh, a function for this table, right? And so what I would do is I would simply just look at the function, the equation, and I would say, okay, what does Y equal when X equals 0? Well, let's replace X with 0 into this equation or function, right? And see if it truly does equal 3. So if you look at this, it'll be 2 times 0. Well, anything times 0 is really just 0. And 0 plus 3, does equal 3. So Y does equal 3, it turns out, when X equals 0. Therefore, ding, 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 it works with this first set. However, if you're taking a multiple choice test, you can't just rest on your laurel. Oh, I tested one X value and I got the right Y. Oh, yay. This must be the answer. It's got to work for every single one. So you have to be patient and thorough, and you have to go through it again with at least 3 of them, if you're really impatient. So let's do it when X is 1 and see if it gives you 5. See, when X is 1, underneath there, the Y is 5. You can kind of see it. That's how it shows up in a table. So we're going to do it that way. Okay, this time I'm going to plug in 1 instead of 0, like the last one, because we're testing this point. And 2 times 1 is 2, right? 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 plus 3 does equal 5. All right. So this is making me feel a little bit better if I'm taking the test, because now I tested 0, it gave me 3. I tested 1, it gave me 5. Let's do another one just to be on the safe side, right? To make sure this really is the output for this function. So, like I said, it's really good to test all points, but let's do 2. Okay, so let's say the X was 2 instead of 1, and then we just do everything else the way it is. So now you're going to see 2 times 2. Well, what is that? That's really 4, right? And 4 plus 3, last time I checked, does equal 7. Okay. So at this point, you tested about 3 points. Probably the odds say this is the correct equation, right? What often you'll see is questions like this where they'll give you about 4 different equations, right? They might have one, like, let's say this is answer choice A. By the way, this is the right one. Let's say this is answer choice A. You got y equals 2x plus 3. Then they'll put a very tempting one up there that looks a lot like it. They might say, well, y equals, I don't know, x plus 3. They'll have one that looks similar to it, right? That'll be answer choice B. And what you want to do is test all the points for each one. That's how you have success with these types of questions, okay? So I just wanted to throw that up there because it's a common question that you're going to see a lot, and they'll do it in different ways. Sometimes they will give you a table, and you have to plug the X in and see if it gives you that Y. Sometimes they'll give you what's called an ordered pair. By the way, let me just go ahead and share this. Let's say they give you something that looks like this, 2, 3, right? And they say, hey, is this an ordered pair point for this equation? Well, you would want to plug in, let's say this was the equation. I'm making this up, okay? Probably not going to work out. Let's say you wanted to test and see if this is a solution to this equation, okay? So remember, an ordered pair is an X and a Y. They just won't label it for you most of the time. This is really 2 is X and 3 is Y. Let me bring it real close to the screen so you see it, okay? Well, if X is 2 and Y is 3, you should be able to plug that in here and see if that's a true statement. Well, if I change out the X with 2, do the math, Y is going to end up equaling 5. That's not going to work because Y is supposed to be equal to 3, you see? So you could cancel that out as far as a potential multiple choice answer, right? A multiple choice question. Okay, so apparently for Christmas, I just need to ask Santa Claus to give me a bunch of markers because all my markers are like going out. I think I have a fresh marker or it doesn't last that long. I guess I use it a lot during my everyday life. So I'm going to try this marker and see if it helps. Okay, we're going to try this marker. So that's a little taste on that. Now, one thing we didn't really get a chance to go over in detail specifically during the 10-week course, because you can't cover every little thing in the 10-week course. We try to hit some of the most important factors, is something called the property of exponents, okay? So depending on, what your experience was, if you took pre-algebra or math classes of the past, you may have an idea of what to do with these and you may not. So I wanted to just remind you, this is one that frankly, you would have had to have been taught in the past for you to have success if you see this on a standardized test. But I'm going to just pull this up just for an example. Okay. So let's say I change the marker color. Hopefully it's not perfect, but you can see that. What you have right here is a term. You got 4xy to the second in parentheses. And on the outside of the parentheses, there's yet another power, another exponent. Okay. What this is really saying is all this 4xy to the second is being raised to the power of 3. So there's 3 sets of this occurring in reality. So there's a property that you may or may not be familiar with. I'm going to share it with you right now. It's called the power to a power property. You can look it up on YouTube or Google, the power to a power property. And what it says is anytime you got a power on the outside of a parentheses, it's technically y to the second being raised again to the power of 3. Well, even though you don't see it, I want you to just go ahead and know, I'm going to put this up there. Both the X and the Y technically have a power as well. That's 4 to the first power, and that's X to the first power, meaning that there's one of them there. Okay. So the power to a power property says whatever's on the outside, if it's an exponent, you multiply that to each degree or each power inside the parenthesis. And that's a rule. They call it the power to a power property. And so if I see this on a test, or I should probably say when I see this, you need to multiply, distribute in a sense, that 3 on the outside to every exponent inside. So, for example, that's going to become 4 to the third power. That's going to become X to the third power. And that's going to become Y to the 6th power. Okay, because I multiplied the 3 times every exponent inside that, sorry for the glare, inside the parentheses. Now, once I do that, I got to go a step further, but I want to go ahead and share with you what I see a lot. In my experience, I've seen a lot of kids forget that 4 it technically has an exponent too, and they'll write the answer like this. Wrongo. You're not allowed to forget about the coefficient 4. That 4 had a power 1, And so it gets that exponent as well. Just saying, it's a mistake. Don't fall into that trap. All right. It's quicksand. Don't fall into the quicksand. Okay. So as a reminder, you're almost done at this point. But now that we have one of these parts, you got 4, you got X, I should say one of these bases, you got 4, X, and Y. Because 4 is not a mystery, it's not an unknown. It says 4 to the third power. We expect you to go ahead and evaluate that. Okay. So 4 to the third power is not 12. Okay. It's not saying 4 times 3. It's saying 4 times 4 times 4. There's 3 4s all being multiplied together. So you got to be careful not to make a mistake and fall into that trap. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4, I believe, is 64. So that's going to be changing to 64. The variables, we really can't do anything else with them because we don't know what X is. We don't know what Y is. All we can do is leave it as X cubed times Y squared like that. And so that would be your final answer here, 64 X cubed Y squared. Okay. And so I just wanted to directly explain this kind of example because it might pop up from time to time. And I don't want you to just feel like, oh, I've never seen that before. Okay. I'm really trying hard today, folks, because man, my marker game, I cannot get enough dry erase markers. I love them when they work, but then they run out and then it's hard to see. And that's just no good. So I'm going to my bag here to see how many markers I can go through. Wow, this one's completely dead. Oh my gosh, I thought I had better markers than this. Okay, I'm going back to green. We'll see. Between pink and green, I think we can finish this out. Okay, so if you're taking my Math Made Simple, one of the things we've been hitting hard the last couple weeks, and frankly, I think everybody needs to pay attention to this, okay? Because I don't care if you're in 5th grade or 12th grade. In my experience, most children struggle or have an irrational fear of fractions, okay? They just do. I don't know. It scares them, but it doesn't have to be scary. Okay. The thing that we've been practicing is multiplication facts, of course, but then how to specifically do something called reduce a fraction, right? It's a very important skill. At the high school level, we expect fractions to be reduced, quite frankly. So the sooner you can give your kids some instruction and practice with this, the better off they'll be as they move up in the higher level mathematics. And so if you're taking my Math Made Simple program, there's a chance we were working on reducing fractions. And so I want to review just a very basic example so you guys can feel refreshed and feel like you have the skill set to be able to do this process. Okay. And so one of the ways while you're learning, I always say use 2 hands while you're learning. That was my coach used to tell me that when I played outfield, center field. I'd always try to catch it with one hand and then I would drop the ball sometimes. So he goes, while you're learning, Chris, let's use 2 hands to make sure you catch it. So little metaphor there. So 2 hands while you're learning. For example, you got 8 over 24. This is a fraction, right? This is part of a whole. 24 represents all of something. This is 8 pieces out of the 24 pieces that are available, right? That's what a fraction is. It's part over a whole. Okay. But there's a process you can do called reducing a fraction. And the skill set for doing that is as follows. When you have a fraction, you need to get used to asking yourself, can that fraction be reduced? Okay, can it be reduced? How do you do that? Well, you want to list out the factors. What numbers times what numbers would equal 8? Give all those possible numbers. What numbers times what other numbers would give you 24? List them out. So, for example, with 8, I know 1 times 8 equals 8. I also know 2 times 4 equals 8. Okay, there's not a whole lot of numbers on the 8 list, but all those are factors of 8. I can multiply them by each other to get 8. Okay, 24 has a few more. And so I say, while you're learning, list them out, right? You got 1 times 24. I'm just making this a long list. You got, let's see, 2 times 12 works. You got, I think, 3 times 8 also. And then there's one more, 4 times 6. So 24 happens to have a lot of numbers, a lot of factors that fall under its list, right? And what we want to work on is looking for something called the greatest common factor. What is the biggest number that goes into both 8 and 24? What is the biggest number you see in the top list that's also in the bottom list? Let's look. Oh, happens to be the number 8. 8 shows up in both lists. It's the biggest number that shows up in both lists. You can't say 24 because it's a big number, but it's not in the top list. This is the biggest one that they have in common. It's called the greatest common factor. Once you identify that number, it happens to be 8 in this example, then you want to divide your original fraction by that number. So for example, we're going to divide 8 by the number 8. And then we're going to divide 24 by the number 8. This number right here, right? That's how you reduce it. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 24 divided by 8 is 3. Therefore, 8 over 24, this is the original fraction, reduces to 1 over 3. Okay? This skill set right here is really cool to practice with your young learner because it does a few things. It helps you practically learn a skill set they're going to need for the following grades. They can see how 8 slices of a 24 slice pie is the exact same amount of pie as 1 slice of a 3 slice pie. As long as those pies are the same size, depending on how many pieces you cut it up into, to be equal, it's going to change. The number is going to change, but the amount doesn't. Okay. But it also really helps them work on their multiplication facts, frankly. A lot of our kids, especially by fifth, sixth grade, if you don't know your multiplication facts, you're going to be in a world of hurt with coming into pre-algebra and beyond because you have to draw on that knowledge so often to do just about everything we ask you to do. If you don't know your multiplication facts, or parents, if you know your kid doesn't know their multiplication facts, get on it immediately because it builds on itself. You can't just, oh, well, we didn't learn that, move on. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And so I just wanted to share that with you because you can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Help them with their multiplication facts while doing a very useful skill that, frankly, you're going to be doing all the time when solving equations, simplifying, getting other problem solving skills built into their thinking, their subconscious. That's what you want to do. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful. This is just meant to be a quick refresher on some of the things that we've talked about, just some food for thought. Maybe put a little wind in your child's sails so they can feel like they can tackle this week's content with some confidence. And if you got any other questions, you can email us at morrismodeleducation@gmail.com. morrismodeleducation@gmail.com. Hit me up. I'll try to answer you as soon as I possibly can. I love you guys. And I'm going to keep it short today. I went 2 minutes past what I said. I said 15 minutes. I think we're at 17 minutes. So we're going to keep it short and sweet. And, let me know what you think in the comments or on email. I'll catch you on the next one.